Keir Starmer has cut funding for road, housing and energy schemes in order to provide an extra £15 billion of funding for defence projects over the next 4 years. And he has warned his successor not to borrow more to pay for defence, despite recent suggestions by government aides and despite leaving Burnham to find an extra £4.7 billion in order to meet the commitments he has made in his new defence investment plan, called a DIP. In a speech made, appropriately some might say, at a drone-making factory in Berkshire, Starmer said, "Defence bonds are just borrowing by another name. The fact is, doing this through borrowing will push interest rates higher at a time when £1 in every £10 already goes on paying interest on borrowing taken out by the government." Some might say that's not a terrible figure. Didn't George Osborne complain about paying £1 in every £4 on interest a few years ago? Burnham will not try to renegotiate the DIP, according to sources close to him. According to The Guardian, a defence insider said it was madness after all that wrangling to have left a £4.7 billion black hole for someone else to fix, while the Conservatives described the plan as a delayed action poison pill for Burnham. Some might say this is true, arguing that Starmer has solved the immediate political dilemma, but not the underlying fiscal dilemma. And in the process, he has rejected all three of the alternatives that had been dominating the debate: no defence bonds, no additional borrowing, and no wealth taxes. Starmer can now say he has maintained fiscal discipline. The fiscal rules imposed by his Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, remain intact because there is no additional borrowing. It also heads off Tory attacks that Labour is financing defence on the Never Never. They seem to be having a great time, criticising the plan from all sides. But roads, electricity networks and housing are themselves forms of national investment. Cancelling or delaying them is not like trimming office stationery budgets, because they are projects to raise productivity, improve living standards, and in some cases enhance national resilience. And Burnham hasn't said anything about accepting Starmer's, let's call it, advice. He could accept the DIP's funding requirements, but fund them with borrowing, of whatever kind, and simply reinstate the plans that Starmer has stalled. You see, defence is arguably capital investment, which is allowed under Reeves's and Starmer's fiscal rules. A nuclear submarine, drone factory, or military communications system is an asset that we expect to provide services over decades. Starmer may disagree, but the matter is now, effectively, out of his hands. And by failing to solve Burnham's dilemma in advance with his own plan, Starmer has given him carte blanche to rewrite how the DIP is funded when he takes over at 10 Downing Street. Starmer's funding plan only raises defence spending to 2.7% of GDP by 2030. NATO's political expectation is 3.5 by 2035, so the Ministry of Defence itself reportedly wanted twice the extra money that Starmer has found. Unless Burnham decides that 2.7% is simply enough, he will eventually have to decide whether to borrow more, tax more, cut other spending even further, or accept lower defence capability. It would be perfectly reasonable for him to decide that Starmer's partial solution to the funding gap is not acceptable, and he'll find another way. One other point strikes me, and it goes back to what I've been saying all along. New Defence Secretary Dan Jarvis has said Labour inherited a defence programme that was underfunded, overcommitted, with 47 of 49 programmes delayed or over budget. If this is the bill left by previous Tory or Tory-led governments, while cutting taxes for the rich, then the debate should not be about sacrificing public investment. It should be about asking those who accumulated the most wealth during the Tory years to contribute more towards keeping that wealth and themselves secure.